Welcome back again to Flavored Words Writing Services YouTube channel. Welcome to each and every one of you. Continuation of a book read, Whispers of God's Assurance, Psalm 23. We're continuing with chapter 2. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23, 4th verse. Chapter 2, the assurance of God's provision. Quote, safety comes in our nearness to God, not in our distance from our enemies, unquote. Dylan Burrows. When trouble is all around, knowing what to do doesn't always come easy as we would want it to. Oftentimes we panic and become afraid, but then there are some instances that we find ourselves taking strength in faith, knowing that there is a power greater than the trouble that we are facing, and that we can take confidence in knowing that we will be protected from harm. As we look at the life of King David in the Holy Bible, we see that he knows firsthand what it is to experience loss, disappointment, lack, fear for his life, and rejection. But he believed and received God's divine wisdom and guidance. He presented himself in obedience to God rather than acting independently of God and his will for his life. You see, David learned as a shepherd boy that sheep had only one responsibility, and that is to obey and trust in the shepherd. And by obeying the shepherd, the sheep would keep safe and care for no matter what troubles may come their way. The Bible is full of many who, by faith and obedience to the submission of God's authority, experience God's supernatural protection. God's demonstration of his ability to protect did not stop there. We find that throughout the history of time, we continue to witness his incredible dunamis, that dynamite power. A power not of our strength and ability. God's and his alone, his power that is worked through us as yielded vessels. A power so unexplainable, leaving people in awe of the God we serve. Today's world is full of believers who have seen in the lives of others or experienced even firsthand the fulfillment of God's promise to protect. He has been a covering, a banner, a safeguard for them in the face of adversity. God is not incompatible, but our unbelief can make us incapable. It can prevent us from experiencing and seeing his supernatural protection. Although no one is immune to death, sickness, accidents, or war, and the list could go on, there's no immunity against life events and occurrences that we often face from day to day. But we know that God can always protect everyone. He has the ability to do so. We know that he has sometimes protected many, and we know that he will often protect some, but yet he has the ability to protect all. But God's promise of divine protection does not mean that he's obligated to work miracles on our behalf. No, God does not guarantee us a problem-free life in this present world. Many faithful servants of God have faced adversities, including poverty, war, sickness, and death. Yet God is still a power of protection. And so if God were to use his power to the effect of working miraculous deliverances in all cases all of the time, then there might be a basis for Satan to call into question the genuineness of our devotion to our God. You see, we would probably be devoted only because that he divinely intervenes in all of our situations at all times. So just how genuine would our faithfulness to him or our allegiance be to him? Jesus plainly told his disciples that as individuals, they might be put to death because of their faith. And that is why Jesus stressed the need for endurance to the end. God is sovereign and he is wise. He does not always choose to do all of that which he can do, yet in his love and wisdom, he allows some things to the contrary to occur for the ultimate good. This does not make him less of being able to deliver, to heal the sick, to cease war, to stop persecution, or to prevent accidents. There is no situation seen in our eyes that is exceedingly hopeless, because in any unlikely situation, God can, yes, he can do the impossible. We can have absolute confidence in God's promise of protection because God is certainly capable of protecting his people. He is God Almighty, a title indicating that he possesses irresistible power, like an unstoppable force. God's applied power cannot be hindered, it cannot be stopped. God assures us that he will protect us. God is for us. He is a refuge and our strength. He is a place that is readily to be found during distress, says Psalms 46 chapter, the first verse. Since God cannot lie, we can have absolute confidence in his promise of protection. God's promise of protection is realized even more by those who draw close to him. Proverbs 18th chapter, 10th verse says, "The name of Jehovah is a strong tower, into which the righteous run and is given protection." In biblical times, towers were sometimes built in the wilderness as a safe place of refuge. But it was up to the one in danger to flee to such a tower to find safety. It is similar with finding refuge in God's name. This involves more than just repeating his name. Well, the divine name itself is not a magic charm. Rather, we need to know and trust the bearer of that name and live in harmony with his righteous standards. What's even more important is that God provides spiritual protection. Our loving God protects us from spiritual harm by equipping us with what we need to endure during trials and to safeguard our relationship with Him. God works to preserve our life, not just for a few short years, but for eternity.